Welcome to episode 1 of The Rake. My name is Marle Cordeiro.
I'm Jamie Kerstetter. This is Crouton.
We are going to be coming to you every week with poker news, poker debates, silly jokes, maybe some side boob, depending.
On our outfit choices, a little bit of poker strategy, but, that's not our main intention for doing this podcast.
Yeah. But we just wanted to make something where we can kind of come and have a space where we can talk about the things we want to talk about without being on social media and, get everything else we want to out there. So I'm excited.
So we want to start by I want to interview Marle a little bit about how she got to be a poker player and vlogger and content creator. So when you were in high school and thinking about going to college or starting a job or whatever, was poker on your radar or did you have other aspirations first?
My dad actually played full-time poker for a little while, and I lived in Vegas briefly. I went to freshman year of high school in Las Vegas when he was playing. So I've been around poker. This is Crouton also. This is our co-host. I've been around poker for as long as I can remember. I played with my family when I was 8 or 9 and lived here, and I've just kind of always been around it. Was talking hand histories with my dad when I was 12, 14, superficially, not, in-depth solving it or anything, but I've always been around it, and I kind of have seen some bad sides of it, which is kind of why I never thought it was my plan. He ended up busting his roll at one point, and I'm just kind of living in Vegas and going in casinos. It was kind of like, I don't know about that. Mm-hmm. And when I was in high school, I was really into modeling. When I was 14, I got an agent. We moved back to Boston when he went broke, and I got an agent, and I was modeling all the time. And I was like, oh, I kind of like, doing this. And I was super shy. I would not speak to my agent. Was afraid to talk to anybody. And that really brought me out of my shell and got me more comfortable. And by the end of high school, I was working all the time. And I was like, wow, this is what I'm going to do. But my agent, bless his soul, was like, we're in Boston. This is a very small market. Yes, you do well here, but you're going to get a rude awakening when you go to New York, which is what my plan was. So I went to New York. He was like, go to school. Because I was like, I'm not going to school. I'm just going to be a supermodel. He's like, you're way too short. You have a lot of issues. It's going to be a lot tougher. You should get a degree.
Yeah, they're saying you're going to have to talk to people. And you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just have your dad. My dad did everything for me for 3 years. Just was the go-between between me and my agent. And it was funny too because my dad is super guy, man's man, and my agent was this flamboyant gay guy. And he'd be like, Gary, hi. And my dad was like, Casey, hi. It was hilarious. But that was kind of my thing. So I went to New York, went to school. Luckily I went to school. My dad was very smart in this way. He said the worst thing you can do is get student loans if you don't know what you want to do, especially.
God, I wish your dad had talked to me about that.
Yeah. Well, he's if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a doctor, that's fine. But I didn't know. So he was I went to school, Pace, downtown. They gave me a full scholarship. Mm-hmm. So I just went for free, which was great. And I did marketing. But I continued to model, and then I realized once I was there, what I actually liked to do more was kind of be more character, I did more commercials and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up dropping out after 2 years and going to 2 acting schools simultaneously, and that was a lot, and just auditioning and acting and stuff. Mm-hmm. And when I turned 21 was when poker first started coming back into my life. And my dad was living in Vegas at that time because he was semi-retired. He worked from home. So I came to Vegas, and my dad and I just played, and it was I was never really a big partier. So when I turned 21, I was okay, yeah, it's cool. I can drink. And that was a little bit of it. But I was more excited about just playing poker. I've always loved it. I've always thought it was cool and fascinating. And so I did that. I got second in a little Bellagio tournament for whatever, $600 or something. And kind of got the bug from there. And then when I went back to New York, my ex-boyfriend was a creative director in advertising, and they had like a game at this ad agency in New York, and he did not like poker. And so I took his seat and would play in that game. It was 1-3, so it was small. But I'd play in that game, and I came to Vegas a few more times, but it was kind of, I was so involved in like the acting, like performing world. My ex was a director, so we wrote a couple of films together, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And after being in New York for 5.5 years, I went through like a really rough time. In the same week, my boyfriend and I broke up, and my mom committed suicide. So yeah, it was it was like a few days apart. So I was sitting on my French couch, already like upset about the breakup, and then that happened, and then I was like, obviously I was 22, so I was very like, what's happening? But my dad was here in Vegas, and I was coming back and forth for a while, just being like, I wanted to spend time with family, and kind of was burnt out of like the rat race. Also, when you're like an actor, you have to kind of keep yourself looking good, and I had totally like let myself go, and physically,
understandably,
and just, I was just so depressed and upset, and like flipping around. So I was going back and forth for about 6 to 8 months, and then I decided, I just like can't be in New York. I'm like not actually trying. I'm not present.
And it's expensive. I've lived in New York 2 different times, and I'm like, man, I feel like I walk out the door and they're like, that'll be $100. Like everything is marked up, and it's just a kind of stressful place to live.
So stressful, and it's like a bankroll eater. Yeah. And when I was there, I would just stay with friends. I wouldn't even, I didn't even have a place because it was too expensive. But eventually I said, it sucks, but I'm just like, I'm over it. I'm going to go to Vegas, and still even poker wasn't even like my dream or anything. I was, I played like sometimes, but this time I was like pretty broke, so I didn't even have a bankroll.
It's hard to play poker when you're broke.
It's so hard, and especially living in New York, it's really just eats it up. So I got 2 waiting jobs, and I had made some friends here just from the few times I'd come. Playing poker, it's pretty easy. It's a social game. You make friends. So I made friends with these British kids who come 3 months at a time to grind, and I lived with them. I lived with my dad for a couple of months in the beginning, and then was waiting tables, and eventually met my ex, and he played full time, and his friends, and then slowly but surely I just kind of decided, what, I'm doing it. I don't know, it just like happened slowly, but
yeah, I feel like for some people the first $600 win would have gotten them. They've been like, I made $600 in like 3 hours. That's a great hourly, totally sustainable. I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. There was definitely times like I waited tables for 2 years, and that's all I did. I quit one of the jobs at one point and just had one, but you make good money in Vegas also. So I was making bank being a waitress.
I waited tables even when I was in college for a few years, and then after that, even when I was in law school, I continued it for a little bit because it's a job where it's like social, and you get exercise and you make some money, and you can kind of quit when you want. It's that no pressure job. You're not like like, this isn't a career. Like, I'm waiting tables. So there's that. The pressure is off. If you decide that you hate your job, you just leave that day and you're done.
Yeah. It's really a great way to make money, I think. And also it's just like, it gives you this kind of empathy when you eat out, for the rest of your life.
I will never stiff someone in my life. They would have to spit in my food and curse at me for me to stiff a waiter.
And there's so many little things about being in a restaurant, not staying up after they close, and not taking up a table when they have reservations. Like, you can just sense these things, and you're just more aware of it. So, but yeah, so that's how I got here. We had very, very, very different backgrounds. You were actually a lawyer, which is, you actually completed school and had a career. Tell me about that. Tell me about how you found poker.
So I was always really competitive. I played soccer and ran track at Rutgers, and it's Division I, and it like took up a ton of time, but it was also the things that I was the most passionate about. So after I graduated from Rutgers, I went to University of Michigan Law School, and I felt kind of weird being there because my whole identity was like, I'm smart, and I'm athletic, and I have all these things that like I've always done my whole life. I go there and I'm like, shit, everyone here is really smart. I'm not special at all. I'm like, there are some people who like blow me out of the water in terms of intelligence, and I'll have conversations with them and be like, all right, well, that's not my thing anymore. And then I'm like, oh, I don't play sports anymore. That's over. The part of my life is done. Like, I could play intramurals if I want to, and I could run marathons and stuff, but I'm not on this team that kind of like nurtured that competitive side of me. So I'm like, wow, that's done. And I had this like feeling of an identity crisis kind of, where I'm like, I don't know what my thing is anymore. I guess I'll just do okay at this school, graduate, get a job, be a lawyer. And my first year of law school, when it was super important to get good grades, my dad died suddenly of a heart attack. And I was like, all right, my focus is gone. I don't care about school. Like, everything else seemed more important than that. Like, even just having conversations on the phone with my mom or my brothers, I would rather do that than study. And then I'd show up at class and I'd get called on with the Socratic method. They'd be like, Miss Kerstetter, what do you think about this? And I'd be like, didn't read it, didn't sleep, have no idea what you're talking about. And it would be like, well, I'm not getting the A in that class, you know, because like real life took over and like school didn't seem that important. So I ended up going through law school and like graduating with like a B average, which is fine, got a good job, and worked as a lawyer. And I realized within about 2 months that I was like, I am not boring enough for this. Like, you really have to have such a narrow focus and really want to make money, and just really, you have to be able to see yourself doing it for 20 years straight. And that's what my problem was. I was like, I can fake it. I could be like, I'm a professional person and do these people's wills and give them advice. But when I started thinking of like a few years in the future, I'm like, if I'm still doing this every day, oh my God, I'm going to want to jump off a building. Yeah. Like, this is not the life that I want. And fortunately for me, I played a ton of poker in law school. When I gave up that idea of I'm going to get straight A's, was when I was like, well, now I have time to do other stuff. Like, for sure. Like, if I'm happy with getting a B, then I can go drive to Detroit and play at Greektown Casino. I can play in this little $20 law school game that we had, and that sparked my interest more than anything else, because these guys were smarter than me, but I kicked their ass in poker. Yeah. I'm like, I would be the person reading Harrington's books, and they were the people that were reading their law stuff. Yeah. Idiots, you know.
But you still finished, though. Which
yeah, I still finished.
It was important to you to like get that degree, and yeah.
It was important to my family for me to get this degree. Yeah. Like, that's kind of what it was. I was like, my mom was going through just so much. Like, her life fell apart when my dad died, and like, understandably, they did everything together. So when she was like, you have to go back, right after he died, it was a week later, she's like, you have to go back to school, like, don't ruin your life, you're on such a good path. Michigan was like the 7th best law school in the country, and it was like, if you graduate from here, you're set, and just like, please don't ruin your life over this like tragedy. And I was like, all right. So I'm in school a week later, like, I'm gonna ever focus, but it did stick with me. My mom wanted me to get done. I got done, and I was on this like good path. And it was a tough sell to my family, even with the degree, even with having had jobs in the legal field, to say, I don't want to do this. I want to play poker. And I played a lot online, and I actually quit my second law job about a week before Black Friday happened, which is hilarious timing. I'm like, awesome. Every day I would go in being like, I don't really want to be a lawyer. And I stuck it out for months of that. Finally get the balls to go in and be like, done with this. Don't want to do this. And a week later, I'm like, oh, half my bankroll, I won't be able to touch it for 3 years. Cool.
So crazy.
Yeah, that was a cool thing that happened in my life. But then I actually moved to Rosarito, Mexico, which was a super good experience that I never thought I was going to do. And I played there for about a year and a half, got a ton of hands under my belt, also met a lot of very good players who were like doing all the right things, and had some good people to talk hand histories over. So it's one of those things you don't know whether it's good luck or bad luck when certain things happen in your life. And I feel like things kind of organize themselves for me to have a good circle of friends in poker and be in a good spot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have such a strong online background, which I don't have. And that's definitely, everybody who has played online is always better, in my opinion. Because it's just, you just get more hands under your belt. You have that kind of...
You find out if you're bad. I think that might be what it is. It's like the people who played online and dropped out have proven to themselves that they're losing at poker. Yeah. And I think that's something too, where it's like, if you have an online background and you're bad, you're going to know about it. Like, if I played 1 million hands online, you're like, okay, well, you're losing at a rate of this many big blinds. I'm like, wow, I'm really bad, and I've proven it to myself. Like, there'll be one guy maybe who should have been winning who had bad variance, but like 1 million other people are losing because they're not good. And that was something that was good for me when Black Friday happened, to just say like, okay, I've been doing this for a long time. I can do this. Like, I'm good at this. I can like play live poker if I want. I can move to Mexico if I want, and it'll be fine. I actually showed my mom my graphs to be like, I'm not throwing my life away.
Yeah.
Like, look, this says so. And kind of convinced other people that like they should just let me do my thing. But it was hard. I think that's, especially now, I mean, poker's gotten harder.
Yeah.
5 or 6 years ago, I'm like, look, I'm winning. And then there were multiple times in the last few years where I'm like, I don't think I am. Like, there were times I'm like, I need to move down in stakes because people have all gotten better. And like, if I don't put in serious work, I'm going to be one of those people that's just spending money on my poker hobby.
But your brother also was the first one that kind of showed it to you. And he now is not playing.
Not at all. Yeah, he sweats it really hard. He couldn't believe it this summer when I commentate. He's like, you're just commentating the WSOP main? I'm just like, crazy. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm like, I just say yes to every opportunity and hope it works out. But yeah, we used to rush home. Like, we were on vacation the one time at a really nice restaurant, and we're like, okay, wrap it up. Like, get the bill. Let's go. My mom's like, what the hell? Like, why? What are you guys in such a rush to do? I'm like, well, the main event's on. And it was like pre-DVR days. So we're like, we got to get back. So we like bag up our food and like run home to the hotel and end up like watching Lon and Norm and all this stuff. And yeah, he loved poker, and he was the one who, he really did. He was always the one who's like, let's play online, like, let's get these books. I remember driving him to Barnes & Noble because he was too young to even drive when he was into poker. And we bought like 6 poker books, and we're going through them.
And what does he do now?
He has his own power washing company, and he's actually like, he's a business owner. It's so weird because I still think of him as this like little brother. Yeah. He got his engineering degree from Rutgers, and he might have switched to psychology, never used it, just decided that like he wanted to just like own his own business. So he's one of those guys that like, he's like, let's get some student loans and then pay them off forever slowly.
I mean, who knows what the right answer is, but you know, it's definitely a wild ride that we've been on, especially in the last year.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk more about that to come.
Sure.
Yeah. But myself, I started a poker vlog about a year ago, almost exactly. And that kind of changed my whole trajectory again with poker. And I went from just playing all the time. I'd played full time for 2 years. And then I started this vlog, and I kind of got more involved in the backside of poker. And it's been kind of weird because poker's almost my side thing, my side bitch at this point. It's kind of, and it's exhausting having a side bitch. Like, I don't know how people do it. It's really, it's like, this is a full-time job. You're needy, and you require a lot of work. So it's been complicated, but it's interesting. We talked about this before, the concept of, are you a pro if you have other income? And even if it is poker related, but
yeah, it used to be a thing. Like, poker has evolved a lot, but it used to be the sort of thing where, like, if you weren't just playing poker and making every dollar in your life from poker, people are like, you're not a real poker pro. You're someone who has a sponsorship. Like, that used to be something I would hear, like, if a friend had a sponsorship, they'd be like, oh yeah, like, do they even win? Like, they're probably just living off their sponsorship. It was like a badge of honor to just grind poker. And then it was weird because, like, I did want to be the person who just grinded poker, especially as a female, because people think that guys are handing you buy-ins or handing you opportunities. Yeah. And, like, I want to make sure I win. And that's why online was so good for me, to have that, to be like, look, like, I'm a real poker player. I don't have a girl name on. I was And the Law Won from the Clash song. Like, I was like, no one knows I'm a girl. No one treats me differently, and I could beat this game. And that to me was like really important for when other things started happening where you get opportunities. I'm like, I can say yes to these opportunities. I've proven myself to myself. And then if I want to make some money doing other things, like if I was going to do a vlog, or if I was going to commentate, or any other ways that you can make money in poker, or take a sponsorship or something, I don't feel like that takes away from my like pro poker playing.
Yeah, I definitely still have moments myself of, am I still a pro? You know, all these things. And I don't know. I think that's just ego and validation and all that. And
definitely is. It was just like my pride, where I was like, oh, I want to make sure that like people think I'm good. Yeah. Now I'm like, who cares? Like, that's the kind of thing where like, you just got to make sure you're winning. It doesn't matter if anyone thinks you're winning, thinks you're good, or anything. Like, you yourself have to know that you're doing the work, and that you're playing the stakes you should play, and that like you're doing the right things.
Yeah. And, we'll talk more about that. We're going to share some results and stuff to come. And yeah. This seems like a good time to reach out to our sponsors and thank them for their support. Thank you to Run It Once Poker, the new fun place to play online. Unfortunately, you cannot play in the United States, which we are now But if you are in Europe and outside the United States, check it out. They've got some amazing promotions and games going on.
Yeah, you can sign up through once.run/play and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to €600. And with the 51% rake they give in their reward system, Splash the Pot, you get a little bit of gamble with your rake back. It's always fun. And if you are in the US and the rest of the world, you can still check out Run It Once training. Best place to learn from poker players much better than us. Just go to once.run/learn. You get 3 free elite videos just for checking it out.
And yeah, so make sure you do that if you want to take it to the next level.
Okay, so that's both of our backgrounds that led up to poker. So where has poker taken you? What have you been doing currently?
So besides the vlog, which I've been doing for a year, in the last 4 or 5 months, I started hosting the Triton series, which is this big series this is maybe their 6th event, so they're fairly new, and they do the super nosebleed high roller events. They had the biggest tournament in history this past series in London, and it's my first time hosting anything. I have eaten a lot of shit along the way. Had some great interviews, some not great interviews, and it's just been another thing for me that's kind of put me outside my comfort zone and showed me this new side to what I can do. But it's just been great being around that insane action. You know, my first interview was Linus Loliger, who's, arguably the best in the world right now, and I got to talk to some amazing people, and it's awesome. And it just shows how big poker has gotten and how it's continuing to grow. Every series at Triton is bigger than the last.
They had a $1 million buy-in, right?
£1 million pounds. So yeah,
over $1 million.
Over $1 million. So it's like, it's just, and everything is bigger and better. They have some huge cash games that they've been playing there. Some of the same people I play with in Vegas, but they're even bigger stakes, massive stakes and everything. So it's growing for sure. I mean, we are seeing so many more of these series popping up, and definitely even the mid to low stakes is growing. We just worked together not that long ago at Reno. You commentated on me playing, and that was kind of cool. How was that for you?
I've had this happen before a couple of times. The funniest time was when I had signed on already to do the final table at Borgata, and then my boyfriend made the final table, and I'm like, it's going to be a little hard to be objective, especially because we even swapped. So I'm like, not only was I like super happy to watch him win money, but I was like, oh, I also have 5% and I have to pretend that I'm objective. So I was like, I just was like, I hope he wins, guys. I hope you understand, and I'm going to try to be objective within each hand. But that's how I felt with you when I'm commentating. I'm like, I was very conscious of like, oh, like, don't give her too much credit because you think a play is good. Oh, don't be too mean because you're overcompensating. And I think that does happen. It's like in the back of my mind to just like make sure I'm treating all the players the same.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It's more fun to do that job when I'm like, I would be watching that stream anyway. That was a fun game to watch. There was a lot of good table talk. And also there were stakes that actually made sense in my mind. Like everyone loves watching the high rollers and the big $1 million cash games. But as someone who plays mid stakes, sometimes I'm like, oh, this feels like Monopoly money. Like when someone's in a $200,000 pot, it doesn't feel real to me. But when you guys are playing 10 and a quarter, I'm like, okay, I can envision playing this hand, and like my bet sizing would probably be this in this spot, and it was cool. Like I would be watching it anyway, so it's cool to be, he's having a dream. Aww. And he's like real weird looking. Sorry, Crouton, for waking you up, buddy. That was fun though. And like that's a cool thing when you still love poker and you're working in the poker industry. Yeah. When I'm thinking I would be watching the stream at home and like rooting for my friend, and now I'm getting paid to talk about it on stream and make it fun. And I'm like, this is definitely a lot different from being a lawyer. I'm actually enjoying the things I do every day.
For sure. Especially with that stream too. It's so lax, and even the pros, even myself, like not that I'm like some GTO bot or anything, but I definitely went into it playing, being like, okay, I'm going to like give action and play crazy. And so it's just like loose, and there's no feeling of you have to be so spot on with everything. And everyone's just having a good time, Danielle Anderson, shout out Danielle, was playing day one, and she got everyone to do shots, and everyone was definitely feeling it. She's
my peer pressure person.
Oh my God.
She's the one person where I'm like, nope, sober, got to do a bunch of stuff in the morning. And then she's like, well, I have a kid to go home to and I'm still doing this shot. And I'm like, fucking Danielle. I'm like, okay, I'm doing shots now.
It's so funny. I mean, I love that about poker, that everyone's just kind of, there's no judgment in poker. It's definitely not dead. It's definitely sticking around.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that it just has that atmosphere about it. It's great.
It's fun. Yeah, about the poker not being dead thing. Like, this has been just every year we talk about it on Twitter.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, here's evidence that poker's dead. And because there are bots that we're worrying about, and there's solvers that people are doing, and like the best players in the world are getting better and better and they're unbeatable. I'm like, yes, but the best players in the world are buying into $1 million buy-ins and $100,000 buy-ins. I'm playing 2-5 and 5-10. I'm playing 1K buy-ins. These guys aren't at home solving for the most part. And the turnouts this summer for WSOP were huge. Yeah. They crushed every guarantee. And not only that, the lines were so long that people would go to the Win and they'd play their tournaments. They go to Aria and play their tournaments. And so those fields were juiced up too. So I left the summer feeling like, wow, I'm glad I didn't quit this game. I'm glad I'm like, my love for it is renewed because there's money in it again. And then I go on Twitter and everyone's like, oh man, these solvers and these bots and these whatever and poker's dying. I'm like, were you at the same WSOP that I was at? Like, that was a good summer. And there is something to be said. Like, people are very narrowly focused on the games that they play. So yeah, if the games they're playing are getting harder, then that's what they're talking about. But like, that's some of the most vocal and respected members of our community are playing very big. So they're talking about their very big games. And I'm like, man, the little peasants down here are having a great time in poker right now.
I think, even Reno, we had 10,000 viewers watching that Reno stream. You know, Live at the Bike gets insane views. All these streams are blowing up, and we're also just seeing that, you know, another big controversy with these streams is that people are saying, you know, it's not fun to watch because everyone's just playing GTO and whatever. But from what I see, actually Sam Greenwood wrote a thing on Twitter talking about Chidwick's play in the super high roller that just happened, and saying that even in that event, which is, you know, arguably the most GTO, the most, you know, solved, you know, players, and they're making plays that aren't.
They're adjusting, because that's where their edge is going to be, right? If everyone is playing like GTO, also when people say GTO, it probably like kills the people who study very hard because there's like, like no one's even approaching close to being a GTO player. They're trying their best, and then even within that, like people are making exploits that they think they should make based on what they think their opponents are doing. So you know, there's adjustments being made even when people are approaching GTO style play. So I like that thread by Sam. And it also highlighted, as I'm reading the thread, I'm like, if I were a more casual player, I'd be like, this is boring, like this thread. Because it was very cerebral, and it was very much like, if you love poker and you study poker, you'll understand this. And if you don't and you play it more casually, you're going to be not that into it, what he was talking about. But that's what's so cool, that there are like different streams for everyone. There are people who are watching the Triton streams just to be like, whoa, they're playing for $1 million a person. Like, they don't care what each hand looks like or whatever. It's just like, who's going to win 18 million? And then there are people that are watching that to break down every single hand and understand it and like put it through their own, whatever they would do to study and be like, oh, is this GTO approved or not? Like, would the solver do this? And then, you know, then there are the streams that are for fun. Like when I commentated your stream, I barely had to talk. It was so funny. I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm having a glass of champagne that Danielle sent into the thing, because I was like, I feel like I haven't spoken in 3 or 4 minutes, because you guys were just chatting and playing the 3-deuce suited bounty game, the skinny at the Reno, they call it. And that was kind of cool, because I'm like, there's no one here who's watching the stream to learn poker.
No.
They're watching the stream because it's fun. There are fun people who are like, gambling for a bunch of money. And I think that there's a lot of different pockets of poker that are doing very, very well. And that I just don't buy that whole poker is dying message.
Yeah, I mean, and even the whole debate, there was something also, you know, of course, Rob Young, the owner of Party Poker, has been talking a lot about on Twitter about, you know, getting some games together for him and doing things like that. But he's a controversial, you know, big thing in poker. And he, what was I going to say? Just talking about our games, that what do people want to see? And Jason Kuhn spoke up saying that, you know, the kind of idea that we want to have everyone drinking and be like, oh, look how much fun we're having is kind of like dead. And I agree with him. And I think that there's this happy balance where, I don't know. I think that like, as long as you're being you and that's interesting. I think that what's not interesting is when you see it being forced, whether that's,
yes,
you know what I mean?
And I won't trash any specific people, but like there are very specific people who are always just like, I'm a clown, and like they think that's appealing, and it is to some people, but I find that tiresome after a while. Like I do think it's fun when people will have a drink before the game, loosen up the game a tiny bit, but I agree with Jason Kuhn that like it doesn't have to be a forced thing.
That's the worst.
If you're playing for so much money, like I've played over my head a couple times because I wanted to play on Poker After Dark or whatever, and I wouldn't want to be doing shots. Like I'm like, this is for a lot of money. Like I'm trying really hard. I will have conversations, but I'm nervous, and like I don't want to have to fake it. I don't want to be like, look how much fun I'm having. I'm like, if I lose a 10K pot, I'm not having fun.
I think that just staying authentic, and there are people like even Berkey, my boyfriend, he's not really. That's not really his thing on TV, is to be the like boisterous. He doesn't drink. He's not whatever. But his thing is that he just gives it gives insane action and will just be crazy. And like that's authentic. He's never forcing it, giving action. He doesn't play like super GTO. He wants to just whatever, and that's his thing. And it's interesting because that's just him. And there are other people like Danielle. She's very talkative, very outgoing, whatever. But that's just how she is. She's not doing it because she's on TV.
Right.
She'd be doing the same thing if she was in the back room.
I've played cash games with her in the casino with no cameras rolling, no whole cards, no nothing. And she's the person being like, do a shot. You could do it. You know, like she's the person who might just break into song for a minute.
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
And that's totally awesome, because then she's the person that you're like, oh, she'd be great on a TV game because she could just be herself and it's going to be good. But what was happening for a while is like some of the games were being stacked with these very loud like showman type people, and like you don't need more than one of those guys. It can get really annoying actually to have a bunch of people who are all putting on a show. So I think sometimes like you want the Berkey who's like going to play really interesting and not really just put on a show. He doesn't talk a whole lot. I love Garrett Adelstein. I say his name wrong every single time. He gives action, he's nice to everyone, and he'll talk when someone engages him. And I'm like, there's a place for those people too, especially when you have the loud guy who's putting on a show. So I think that's kind of interesting that the old school players prefer the very loud, boisterous people because that's like, that was their era of people. And I'm like, I like them too sometimes, but I don't think they have to find their way into every single lineup. I think that there's a place for a lot of different type of players in poker. Definitely.
And just be you. And I feel the pressure though, that's definitely when I play myself, even in Reno, because there are times where I kind of just like, I like that kind of zone sometimes of just not necessarily having headphones in, but that focus of, I'm just going to grind and actually just try my best and just actually compete. And sometimes I'm like in that zone and I'm like, oh, I'm on TV, I can't be. But I'm like, you can, it's all good. You can just do whatever you feel. And I think the numbers speak for themselves that poker's certainly...
People are watching it.
Certainly not dead. And, and all these different kinds of things are getting, competitive numbers, whether it's a super nosebleed quiet game or it's like a super wild game. So
lately I've been playing on Jason Somerville's Run It Up streams.
Oh yeah.
And they're small. They're like games that I can play. We're playing $5, $10 straddle. It gets a little out of line every time. Just like it reminds me of like a 2 a.m. cash game where all of a sudden a couple people are stuck and they're like, hey, let's just bump up these stakes and put a bounty on this and let's bet red or black flops and whatever. It's like people are giving a lot of action. But they're having 3,000 viewers on that. And I'm like, you're basically watching a small game between friends.
Yeah.
And that's really heartening to me that, that I think mid stakes are going to be healthy for a really long time. And I think that the elite players' concerns about solvers and bots and all the things they worry about are very, very legit to the stakes that they're playing. And that their concerns are legitimate, but also that sometimes like the mid stakes people are forgotten where I'm like, hey, our ecosystem in poker is doing good.
It's so hard though. I mean, I'm by no means, proficient on Pio or solvers myself, but I've obviously watched a ton of Run It Once videos, which a lot of Run It Once videos are solver based and are really in depth videos that I literally have to like focus on.
Yeah.
You cannot watch them in the background.
And you have to like rewatch them.
Yeah, and especially so many people like Sauce who are like so in depth in their analysis. And if you look at it, it's not like they just plug in how do I play Ace King under the gun and it just tells you do that. Oh, you should just do this. It's he starts with like an hypothesis of like, oh, I think that this could be an exploit, and then he has to like play with all the little notches and play with the things, and then still he gets an output of raise 80% and fold this much, and it's so nuanced and it's just so complicated. And I don't know. And then at the end of the day, I think personally, especially live poker, you live in the exploits, and that's what makes someone really good.
Live poker is not going to be dead for a very long time.
It's so much about exploits, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think the players that I look up to the most and think are the most talented are the ones that have that knowledge and they know how they can fall back on it. Someone who does really well was Andrew Moreno, who played in the game with me. I've known him for 5 years, for a long time. Very studied, smart player, but he's so exploitative, and he's able to just like switch on a dime and make these crazy adjustments in game because he's so attuned to what's going on. So I think that, just for the basic fact that you gotta pay attention, and that will never go away. That will always be the case.
Solvers take work and a basic knowledge. But that's the one concern I have when people are saying poker is dead because of this and this. I'm like, I hope that casual people who enjoy playing don't read that and think, oh, people just plug in this and it tells them how to beat me.
Yeah, it gives
I'm like, you need to know so much and you have to put in so much work to even get the right output, that like the correct output. I'm like, if I go and use a solver, like I watch a lot of videos. I like Run It Once videos a lot. I think Jason Kuhn is great. I think the Greenwoods are great. Chris Kruk is great. And something I like is that they know a lot about what they're talking about, and they will do the work and they'll explain to me how they got there. And for me, I'm like, if I take some hands and I start trying to mess around with solvers with no one's help, I'll make myself a worse player.
Yeah.
So the guys who are at home being like, oh no, these people who play 5-10 are going home and like figuring out how to beat me. I'm like, they're probably not.
They're not.
Like, and I think that mid-stakes is going to be healthy for quite some time.
Yeah, I think I do think people have, in general, I think it's, we can all agree that people in general have gotten better, and the very basic things of don't punt and basic hand ranges and stuff have definitely gone up. Like it's rare now that you see people kind of check calling down with queen high thinking it's good or something.
Yeah.
It's something egregious like that. But I think, poker just takes a lot of work at the end of the day, and I think that too many people enjoy it for it to be going away.
You missed the best era of poker. The only thing that makes me sad about like our backgrounds is I'm like, oh man, you missed those couple years where people were like, well, 9 deuce off, it's a forward bet to 6 bet type of hand. You're not going to 4 bet and then fold it. Like if you watch some of the Scoop final tables, you can replay them. Chris Oliver, who's like was my favorite player because he would just like punt around. He multiple times was raising was like 4 or 5 betting 9 deuce off. I don't know if it's his favorite hand or whatever. I'm like, they're playing for $1 million. He's just like, what are you going to do? I mean, if you 3 bet, this is a 3 to 5. Like,
a 3 to 5.
That was a thing that was in everybody's videos. Like, oh, this is the 3 to 5 type of hand. I'm like, you don't hear people being like, oh, we 3 bet to 5 bet this. Now we all flat and like play post flop and play better. But at that time, it was more like of a macho thing where you're like, I'm not going to flat. I mean, we're going to put the pressure back on this guy. And it was like, we have our rounders thing back here where some of the hand histories were just ridiculous.
Absurd.
But if you go back to like online poker around, I guess, 2009, 2010, it was like that where it was just like, I'm going to make this guy crack if I just put more pressure on him. And it wasn't like as mathematical, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe that day will come again soon.
Yeah. It's still, you still have your opportunities at WSOP. I'm like, there are times I've been like, I think I'm in an ego battle with this guy. Like, I'm not feeling it, but this guy's in an ego battle with me. So you have to like adjust the ranges that he's playing based on like this guy hating my guts.
Yep.
But it's a good time to explain why we're called the Rake.
Yeah.
We have our Rounders poster back here. In that movie, Worm says,
in the poker game of life, women are the rake. They are the fucking rake.
So here we are.
We are here. We are the Rake. we're the people you have to deal with. You know, we're the token ladies that you always see, and you're like, oh, there's that bitch again. Like,
Yeah,
oh, Marle,
we're
like,
that
can't get
bitch.
rid of her. We're the rake. More rake is probably not better, but more women are better, I think.
I agree.
So
I would like more ladies in poker.
Yeah.
And I hope that they're listening and realizing poker's not dead. It's not too late to get into it.
For sure. And that's going to be a common discussion point. And we're not going to do too much strategy going forward, but we are going to do some. We do want to do a segment called As Played, where we get hand histories from viewers, and we want them to be punty, and we want your worst hands, and we're just going to give you some feedback, joking or otherwise, and do some of that. But besides that, we're going to keep it pretty light, talk about some current events, talk about what we're up to, our results, what we do as far as actually play poker these days, and kind of just give you our, stupid take
On everything.
on this industry and what's been going on with it.
Yeah, and Crouton's going to sleep on the couch. So
Yes.
like, if you hate us, you at least have something cute to look at.
For sure. All right. Well, that's it for the first episode, I think. I think we
Sure, send it.
Yeah, send it. It's a wrap. Ship it. We're gonna wrap it up here. But if you guys have any suggestions, otherwise, feel free to write us in about that. And hands, of course. And we are gonna have some guests at some point as well. So if there's anybody you'd really like to see us talk to, let us know. All right. See you guys later.